Jesus exposed himself to rejection when he called people to follow him. Just think about that. He exposed himself to rejection when he called people to follow him. He was always calling people. The rabbis of the day would have people approach them and follow them. But Jesus went and he called people. In John 4:18-22, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me. Now, who says that? If I see you with a thriving business and I mean it with all my heart, will I come to you and say, hey, stop what you're doing there. Come and follow me. I've got something better. I can make you fishers of men, right? Just think about it. That's what Jesus was doing. He was exposing himself to rejection. The guys could have just turned around and said, are you crazy? We need to make a living. How can we just drop everything? You're being so presumptuous. That's arrogant of you to think we're just going to follow you, right? Yet many of us, we fail to build the relationships that God has called us to, the spiritual alliances God has called us to, because we reject ourselves before we can be rejected. Jesus said, come, follow me. This is the same principle when you're inviting people to church, when you're inviting people to be mentored by you. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. So he didn't just say, come, I'm going to use you guys. He said, come, I'll make you better. Come, I will take you to another level. What are you offering people? At once they left their nets and followed him. Now, Jesus knew something they didn't know. Jesus had prayed about these kinds of things. Imagine calling people to leave their businesses and follow you. You can definitely expect them to say something negative back to you, can't you? Right? Now, there were those that followed Jesus, but there were others that didn't. There are others that said, Jesus, I've still got this to do. Oh, I've got a business. I've got a farm. My father's going to die soon. Jesus was comfortable with rejection because he was so full of acceptance from the Father. God wants to take us to a place of deep self-acceptance so that we can take that risk of making ourselves vulnerable. Some of them already had a view of Jesus because of his background, yet he still went out to call them. Jesus knew the racism that was there. Jesus knew about that. Do you remember when Jesus called Nathanael? He was aware of the tribalism. He was aware of how these people viewed someone from Nazareth. John chapter 1, verse 45-49. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about. We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote. Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. Come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Some translations say in whom there is no guile. That's such a powerful thing. Here's Jesus potentially being rejected by Nathanael, having someone discriminate against him. Many of us would be offended, would be like, dude, I was going to make you something great, but I'm not interested. If you're dissing where I come from, I'm not interested in you. Let me find someone else who hasn't got these tribal issues, right? Who hasn't got these issues. Yet Jesus speaks to the treasure in him. And he says, here's truly an Israelite in whom there's no deceit. Sometimes we'll make ourselves vulnerable only when we can see the treasure in the people we are calling. When we can see the treasure and we look past the discrimination. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. That's verse 48. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Verse 49. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Isn't that amazing? Let me say something to you. You can make yourself vulnerable to people, but you will experience the benefits later on because people change. People change. If you are in obedience to God and you are building spiritual alliances that God has called you to build, yes, you open yourself up to potential rejection, but you also experience joy. I'm sure Nathanael was a great blessing, right? I'm sure he was a great blessing to Jesus in the grand scheme of things. Jesus was able to actually see the treasure in Nathanael and still pursue him despite potential rejection. That's so powerful. Sadly, many of us, we fail to activate community because we reject ourselves before we can be rejected. We play it safe, don't we, when it comes to building relationally with people. Jesus was so secure in the love of the Father that he was able to step out and call people to himself. Who is Jesus calling you to build with? What relationships are you being called to initiate and to nurture and to rebuild right now? Are you doing it, or are you afraid because you can't make yourself vulnerable? It's a risk, but do it if God is calling you to those spiritual alliances, because there's also the blessing